Hey everyone, good evening to the session. So this session is by Scholar Spark, and Scholar Spark is an initiative of the students of BITS Pilani, Goa. At the outset, it was started as a forum for students to employ their ideas and creativity for scientific and technological solutions. Scholar Spark, in its true spirit of creativity and quality assurance today, offers its services in diversified regimes, including academic deliberations, web development, NAC accreditations, and portfolio management. The present idea of global identity popped up in 2016, and initially it was called Generic Information Tracker. The innovation was discussed with the Prime Minister of India in 2016, who prompted Rishabh Garg to develop the concept for India Vision 2020. So its first prototype was presented in India International Science Festival, and in 2018 it was registered with National Innovation Foundation, Government of India. During the last 3 years, Rishabh has had discussions with Ministry of Telecommunications, Government of India, and with the Department of Science and Technology, Government of MP, on drawbacks of centralized ID management system, such as consolidated database, lack of interoperability between administrative departments, excessive bureaucracy, privacy concerns, hacking, and ever-growing technological issues. These discussions redirected the focus of research on feasibility, benefits, and privacy concerns of identity documents. Due to the increasing sophistication of smartphones, advances in cryptography, and the advent of blockchain technology, a new identity management system has been built on the concept of decentralized identifiers (DIDs), introducing a new subset of decentralized identities known as self-sovereign identity (SSIs). So today, Rishabh Garg will deliver his talk on global identity through blockchain. He is the co-founder of Scholar Spark, and he is a sophomore at BITS Pilani, Goa. His domains of specialization include full-stack development technologies, machine learning, neural networks, and blockchain-based decentralized apps. He has carried out more than 15 personal projects, of which two supervised projects are based on blockchain technology, and he has also contributed to two open source projects. So now that we know the entrepreneur and the visionary that Rishabh Garg is, I take a lot of joy in inviting him to start the session. So Rishabh Garg, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Arushi, for the introduction. So let me just present my screen. Okay, so is my screen visible?
Yeah, it is. It is visible.
Okay. So good evening, one and all present in the webinar. Friends, as we all know, identity is vital to almost everything. It makes an easy access to a number of services and facilities, may it be food, education, medical care, banking, or trade. But the most unfortunate part is that in a world where technology has made everything available at the doorstep, 1.1 billion people around the world have no proof of identity, and 45% of those without an identity are among the poorest 20% on the planet. In want of an identity, and of course due to many other factors, $2.2 billion are lost annually owing to the lack of verification instruments. For the last 10 years, one nation that is struggling hard to provide an identity to all its citizens is India. In India, there is no single commonly accepted national ID system. Many Indian residents, till date, have several forms of identity documents for different purposes like EPIC for voting, a ration card for public distribution system, a PAN card for income tax, and a driver's license for driving or a passport for traveling abroad. So prior to the Aadhaar project, these ID documents were meant for some specific purposes only. Then in 2006, an idea of universal identity was proposed by the IT department, Government of India, whose primary aim was to provide a unique identity number to every resident. To make the ID safer and more secured, it was made biometrically enabled. This project, which was popularly known as Aadhaar, became the world's largest national identity project, and all the biometrics of the residents are being stored in a centralized electronic repository. Over the last 12 years, 1.29 billion users have been enrolled in the system, where an expenditure of rupees 12,962 crores have been made. This clearly indicates that 98 million people who are in dire need of access to the benefits provided by the state are still deprived of services and facilities. So, while the system was expected to depict a more accurate picture of the Indian population and to provide an easy access to all the public services, the ground reality has not been quite so. Such a silo-based project has resulted in the accumulation of forged identities. So while it's apparent that the current identity management system is full of flaws, all over the world there are endless number of identities, and to get one you have to come across long queues, lengthy procedures, endless formalities, and the intervention of agents and proxies. Then at each level, verification of these documents becomes another tedious exercise. Even during any online process or banking transactions, every app asks for a new ID and password. Apart from that, it also poses a number of challenges. The first and the foremost of these challenges is identity theft. Breach level index clearly warns that 4.5 million records are stolen every day. So have you ever wondered why does it happen? Well, the answer is it happens because we often share our personal information to unknown sources to avail their services. Since they are stored on a central server, they serve as a honeypot to the hackers. Moreover, the apps are not updated on a regular basis. Since they do not comply to the security measures, we have an absence of compatibility. Thirdly, the existing authentication process involves three stakeholders: verifying companies, which provide KYC verification, users, and third party, which could be a university, bank, or any other government organization, which need to check one's identity to provide its services. Since KYC companies have to meet the requirements of banks, healthcare providers, universities, and many others, they require more resources to speed up their tasks. So, in turn, they extract a big amount from you and me as hidden processing fees. Even then, the third party keeps awaiting us for a long time on board to get the verification done. The most important concern is that the user does not have any control over his personally identifiable information. So, without being aware of the fact how many times our data has been shared, we make compromises with our privacy. So, don't you think that the identities must be under the control of us, that is, the users? They must be portable and verifiable anywhere and anytime from the comfort of our homes as well. At the same time, they must be private and secure. We should share the details which are relevant to the services that we are getting, instead of sharing all our information for every single service that we encounter. There should be a proper interoperation network between the government and the different organizations. Working entities in healthcare like hospitals, doctors, clinics, pharmacies, etc. must be linked properly to offer prompt and efficient services. Similarly, educational infrastructure should also be equipped with a modern technology for authentication and verification processes. Lastly, banking must be made secure and more user friendly. We must avoid the repeated sign in and sign out exercise for every single transaction. Now the question arises, how can we achieve this? So as a solution, one technology that has made a wave across the world is blockchain. It's a type of distributed ledger technology that ensures that the information is kept in decentralized databases. Naturally, it does not leave any scope for agents and intermediaries, since the nodes that are present on the blockchain server can verify each other's information through some program that we can write down using smart contracts. By adopting this technology, users will also enjoy ownership of their data by creating a global ID which will serve all possible purposes. So if you look right from the beginning of internet, the online identity, that is when we go to the internet, we basically do all the transactions through a particular identity, and that identity is called online identity. So this online identity has passed through 4 different stages. The first one is the centralized identity, which is being extensively used worldwide. It is controlled by a single authority, and the Indian Aadhaar is a living example of this type of identity. In this, each organization issues a digital identity credential to a user to allow him to access its services. So this is the most common form of identity that we encounter in our daily lives. For every new organization, we need a new digital identity credential, which may lead to a lot of confusion. After the centralized identity, federated identity came up. This model allowed users to utilize the same identity on multiple sites. Microsoft's Passport is one such example. It was released in the year 1999. In order to provide every user a right to control his or her online identity, an idea of user-centric identity evolved. It was, of course, controlled by an individual without requiring any federation. He can theoretically register his own ID, which he can use independently. But still, he did not have ownership or control over his information that he wants to share. So, one came up with the idea of self-sovereign identity. The only identity model that provides full right and control of identity to the users across the multiple authorities is this type of identity. Therefore, it suits best to the contemporary needs of identification and access management. The honeypot problem will therefore also not exist as well. The credentials are stored directly on the user's device, that is the mobiles, the desktops, or IPFS like decentralized structures, which leave no possibility of unauthorized data access. Now, before going further, let us discuss something about IPFS. IPFS, or Interplanetary File System, is basically uses a peer-to-peer network model for file sharing across many computers. It acts as a decentralized storage solution for blockchain-based content. Files are broken down into different parts and stored across a network of nodes. The system tracks the file using hashes. When the parts are assembled together, as you can see in this case, so based on their hash value, the system basically recreates the original file. To avail any facility or service, the identity of a person needs to undergo a two-step method, the authentication and verification process. To prove that the identity belongs to the same person who has approached the authority, his name and identifying documents are checked by the authentication process. To know whether the documents indicating name, address, passport number, etc. are submitted by the person are correct or not, there is a process of verification. That means there is a verifying identity which confirms that the data claimed by the individual is genuine or not. This is usually done through the verification of identifying documents. Blockchain provides a platform to create and distribute public or private keys. Each public key is allowed to have its own address, which is known as DID or decentralized identifier. These help in encryption. In order to create self-sovereign and encrypted digital identities, an account address shall be generated using a unique private key. The private key can be an alphanumeric password appended to a random number employing a mathematical algorithm. We also ensure that the mathematical algorithm obeys the law of avalanche effect. That is, it should not be reverse engineered very easily, and a very small change in the statement should lead to a very large change in the mathematical algorithm's output. Biometrics cannot be used for generating private keys, as the fingerprints and retinal blood vessels can change with time. In order to create self-sovereign and encrypted digital identities, an account address shall be generated using a unique private key. The private key can be alphanumeric password, as I had told. So this is the image, and as you can see, we are going to request the access to the ID. Then the notification will allow access to the vendor, and using the trust score, we can basically do the automation of the verification process. So now let us have a look on how it will work exactly. The step 1 will be the installation process. An individual will have to download the mobile app from the Play Store or App Store. After downloading the app in the mobile phones, a user will create a profile on the app. Once the profile is created, the user will get the unique ID number from the UDI authority, which will help the organizations to send or get access to the user's identification documents. The step 2 consists of fetching or uploading the required documents. On having the unique ID number, the user needs to fetch the government issued IDs through the app, which will be saved in the IPFS, having hashed addresses stored in the blockchain. The app will extract the personal information from these IDs so that the user can do self-certification of his own details. The users will now have the ownership of their own data, as it would help the users to decide what information is to be shared with organizations. In order to share the specific details or required information, he will encrypt the information, which is the hash of the credentials in this case, and share the relevant public key to whomsoever it may concern for decryption. Without the user's consents, no information can be shared with any identity seekers. In case of a newborn baby, the registrar births and deaths would record the birth details and provide a 16-digit unique identification number. The family details, particularly the name of the child or date of birth, place, parents' name, address, caste, etc., together with the biometric information, that is DNA map, finger impressions, retinal image, blood group, as per feasibility of the child, shall be uploaded through authorized service providing agency in case of newborn babies, or may be fetched from UDI database and saved on IPFS. The biometric details would be updated after every 5 years till the child attains 15. Now, wherever the user moves, may it be to school, medical center, job, or market, this 16-digit ID number would serve as his roll number, enrollment number, registration number, driving license number, etc. No additional number will be required for any purpose. Even if the 16-digit ID becomes public, it cannot fetch the documents or information from the app unless it gets access to the password. Further, the hacker cannot generate the private key from the passcode, as the former contains a random number auto-generated by the system. To share specific credentials, 2 approaches can be adopted. The first approach is that one can send the respective hashes of all the credentials to the receiver, or the second approach is that he can compile the credentials into an object on the IPFS and send the root hash of the object. The root hash is generated by hashing the object entities by Merkle tree hash method. For example, if a child takes admission into a school, the parents on the behalf of the child would share the child's public key along with the hashes of the respective credentials with the school administration to allow access of relevant details. The school will write all the accomplishments, that are participations or scholastic grades, extracurricular attainments, etc. of the candidate on the same IPFS. On seeking transfer from one institution to another, the previous school would generate a transfer certificate through its authority key. An authority key is a private key specific to an official holding a position as the authority, which would be different from his individual private key. As soon as the child takes admission into the successive institution, His parents would share his public key with all the pertinent details, and the new school administration will start writing on his IPFS. The school will write a revocation registry which would prevent the student from taking admission into two institutions at a particular time. During periodical census, the government can issue a notification to all the citizens of the country to share their hashed data, not the original one, encrypted with their private key, comprising of the most pertinent information such as name, parents' name, date of birth, educational qualifications, with a public key to decrypt the same. The government should also avoid gathering redundant information which may serve as the honeypot for hackers. On attaining maturity as per census records, the individual would automatically get the right to vote. Evidently, he would not require any separate epic, since the blockchain would identify the electoral rights of those who have attained 18 on a day-to-day basis. No extra procedures or long queues would be required. On the day of polling, any citizen who has attained 18 can make a login through his password on the decentralized app anywhere in the world. Once he casts his vote, his account address will be disabled. For barely a few services like passport, where document may be essential in the paper form for visa or immigration procedures, there seems to be no valid argument for having a hard copy. For other services, this will also simplify the procurement procedures. As soon as the document is digitally issued by the authority, it will appear on the IPFS. Clerks and proxies will also seldom get the opportunity to make delays or expect the bribes, since most of the services will be available online. For all the financial transactions, your UDI will be linked to only one subject. Hence, it would be a matter of seconds to get the details of all the deposits and borrowings using the tree root hash. Wherever you go, be it a restaurant, club, shopping mall, or fly abroad, UDI linked IPFS object would carry the statement of every single penny that you earn or spend. This would enable honest taxpayers to display all the assets and liabilities before the IT authority. Even the IT authorities would also have no reason to doubt the integrity of that person. In a similar way, documents pertaining to property, occupation, financial history, medical records, etc. can be maintained by creating a distributed hash table on a UDI linked IPFS, and the hashes of the same can be encrypted using the public key of the user. These encrypted hashes will be operated, accessed, or retrieved through a multi-purpose digital ID card. So friends, my idea is to have one world, one identity. This one identity would carry user's name, QR code, his photograph as is visible on the slides. The card on insertion into a card reader or a customized machine shall display the DHT's distributed hash table, comprising of all the encrypted hashed information of the objects and its sub-objects. The user can make access to the online documents using his private key. If someone loses his multi-purpose ID, he can request the appropriate authority to issue a clone. This clone will be a vegetative copy of the original ID. It's because there is no mutation possible in the blockchain. If an offender tries to steal someone's identity or reap the benefits, he will not be able to do so, as the entire information is encrypted using the private key, which is not accessible to anyone except the user himself. On death, the registrar of births and deaths shall be informed. He would deactivate the UDI for further use. In such a case, only the legal heir shall be entitled to draw the claims through nomination of power of attorney. The next step will be third-party access. Anytime a government organization or any third party needs to make access to some specific details of a person for authentication processes, a notification will be sent to the individuals owning the identity. Once the user allows the third party to access his specific details, the said authority or entity can use the identifiable information only for authentication, and the individual will be able to trace the purpose for which his personally identifiable information has been used. Blockchain does not store users' data or information as well. So the information is stored in the user's IPFS as mentioned earlier, and it's the transactions that are made between the identity holder and the third party that will be recorded on the blockchain. For instance, like we can clarify this through an example. If a passport authority verifies the person's identity via a public key or an app, then that transaction will be added on the blockchain and is visible to all the connected nodes. Suppose there is a person who needs to authenticate himself to apply for a visa. He will provide the hash of the object that contains all the required credentials, which will be duly encrypted by that person's private key and the authority's public key. So this would enable the required authorities to make access to the information. The authority will decrypt the hash of the object using his authority key and the person's public key. Now the verifying authority can check his documents and the transaction will be recorded on the blockchain. This is how the authorities will be able to validate that person's identity instantly. Now let us discuss how do we generate the trust score through smart contracts. Smart contracts contain the business logic and can generate a trust score for a user from the information provided by him for creating a self-sovereign identity. Higher will be the trust score, higher will be the trustworthiness of an individual. This can help the organizations validate users' identity on real-time basis. An initial user may be kept under observation for the first 6 months, giving him the time to create the trust score. During the period, he may furnish the required information and upload the credentials to establish his identity. A user can achieve a higher trust score by uploading multiple documents on the app, mobile app, or the IPFS. The system will verify if the credentials like the name, parent's name, date of birth, etc. match precisely or very significantly. Perfect matches obviously will enhance the trust score. On the contrary, if a user fails to upload relevant documents on the system or does not allow access to the government organizations to verify the identity or makes frequent changes in his identity profile, particularly with regards to his name or date of birth, the trust score will be dropped down on the app. Based on the user's trust score, it can be determined whether it's a valid account or a suspicious one. For example, if a bank needs to check the authenticity of the person for granting him a loan, they can check the user's trust score. It can save time, money, and also provide an insight to the user's credibility. Since the object containing all the information or transactions would be protected by the user's public key, it's only the user who would be able to make access to the entire information. In the wake of suspicion or illegitimate activities or suppression of information, a competent authority, duly appointed as per the provisions of law, shall ask the user to share the requisite hashed information duly encrypted along with the public key of the authority and the private key of the user. If the user fails to share the pertinent information within a specified time period, let us say 15 days, the system will start dipping the user's trust score at the rate of 20% for every 10 days. As the trust score drops down, the users will find it difficult to make the transactions and avail the services on a day-to-day basis. He will have no alternative except to share the key. No sooner does he share his public key, the trust score will automatically restore. Now let us talk about the user-optimized features of blockchain. Each user whomsoever registers on the blockchain identity and access management system will get a UID, which will be stored on his device backed by IPFS. A blockchain identity management system does not store any user's data, rather it uses smart contracts to share this personal information, and hence data manipulation is not possible on the blockchain. No transaction of user's information can occur without the explicit consent of the user that adds security to the identity management system. No personal identity document of the users is stored in a centralized database. All the documents that identify users are stored on the device, which is backed by IPFS, which makes it safe from hackers. Decentralization enables the distribution of information on every node in the network, reducing the chances of a single point of failure, which is also known as POF. Irrespective of geographical boundaries, the users can get their identity verified across the globe. Blockchain ecosystem is user, hence we can also conclude that blockchain ecosystem is user optimized. It is both cost and time effective. Blockchain allows every individual on its network to trace their transactions. Every transaction that is recorded on the blockchain has a verifiable authenticity. However, the identity of the person involved in transaction remains obscured. So we can say that blockchain enables a more secure management and storage of digital identities by providing unified, interoperable and tamper-proof infrastructure with key benefits to government, enterprises, IoT management systems. It performs the middle and back office functions in a way that the internet and web do to the front office functions, that is automate the functions for bringing efficiency and new business opportunities. Thank you. So now I hope that you all found the session informative. If you have any questions or queries, you can ask right now, or you can contact me through my email ID rishabgarbits@gmail.com. So does anyone have any queries? You may unmute yourself to ask if you have any. Okay, so I suppose there aren't any queries. So yeah, thank you for being such a patient audience, and I hope that you found the session informative. You may like enter the feedback in the feedback form. Yeah, so thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Rishabh. I'm very sure that everybody would agree that the session was really informative, very unique, and thank you so much for hosting the session. Before you all leave the Meet link, I just wanted to convey that there'll be a survey, a feedback form which would be released. It won't take long. I mean, it'll hardly take like 30 seconds to a minute for you to fill it. So just please fill the form out. We would like love to hear from you how you liked the session. So kindly please fill it.